Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to be with us today. I am Allison Scarborough, Consolidated Planning Group. We are together with Jan Davies and I think upwards of 9 ISDs today. And today what we're talking about is preparing for employment for young people with disabilities. I always like to go over a few housekeeping items from the very beginning. We are in webinar mode today, and what that means is that we can't see you or hear you, but we know you're there, and we're glad that you're here with us today. We invite people to put their questions in the chat box, and we'll be taking questions throughout the presentation today. And this presentation is being recorded, and so you're going to get an email following today's presentation with a copy of today's slides, as well as a link to the recording. If you're joining us by podcast, and you would like a copy of the slides, you can reach out to us at contact@cpgcares.net or 281-690-1177, and we would be happy to send you these slides. We send the slides out on purpose because oftentimes the slides have wonderful contact information and links to various things that you can be checking out on your own time. So a little bit about us. Consolidated Planning Group is a holistic special needs financial planning firm. We are domiciled in Texas, and we serve clients all throughout the United States, not just in Texas. We have over 30 years of experience. We're nationally certified as Social Security advisors and members of the Special Needs Planning Academy. And we help families just like yours plan for the future of a loved one that has a disability who may have care needs for the rest of their life, not just the rest of yours. We help people put lifetime protection plans in place. We help people set up ABLE accounts. We do a lot of advocacy in the way of these webinars. We have webinars every single week on various topics surrounding planning for a loved one with a disability. The topics might include guardianship, special needs trust, SSI, Medicaid, Medicaid waivers, letters of intent. There's a wide variety of topics, and we have them all stored on the Consolidated Planning Group YouTube channel, which you can subscribe to for free. We've really tried to label them in such a manner so you can search the topic that you're thinking about, whether it's housing or SSI, and you can find the webinars on that specific topic. So, you know, when it comes to planning for a loved one with a disability, it's really important that we take the steps necessary to preserve their eligibility for state and federally funded programs. We have a tall order as parents because when it comes to our own future and our own retirement, we're going to spend 25 to 35 years in retirement. And when we have a loved one that has a disability that may have care needs the rest of their life, it's like a third bucket for retirement because they may have care needs 25 to 35 years after we're gone. So developing a future care plan is really going to help answer questions like, how much do I need to fund a special needs trust? Looking ahead, and I know Jan and her team, they work, and there's a lot of transition services that are available through the school, and they start looking at, 18 plus programs, vocational options, transition programs, etc. And we encourage all families to work closely with your school and your advisors in that way, because, when they start their freshman year, you think, wow, I got 4 years. It seems like a really long time, and then you blink, and then there they are, and, they're 18 years old, and we're thinking about, all the transition topics. So reach out to your support team. The good news is there is a ton of support around here and in this area, various agencies like we're going to hear from today to help on things like employment. There's so many options out there and so many things to be considering. And I know a lot of it feels overwhelming, and that is why a lot of these webinars, why we have these webinars, to take some of the guesswork, and so that way you don't feel as overwhelmed when you're taking the steps that you need to take. So we are really, really excited to be here today with Catina Shelton and Jacqueline Carter, and they are going to go over workforce solutions and vocational rehab. And these programs, if you've attended our webinars or podcasts in the past, you've definitely heard me talk about these programs in the past. These are really some great programs, and I think it's kind of one of the best kept secrets because a lot of people don't even know that these programs exist and that there is help out there, state and federally funded programs that are going to help our kids get to work and close some of those gaps on their impediments to employment. So having said that, I would like to turn it over to you. Just remind everybody that if you have questions, go ahead and put those in the chat box, and we will be looking at those throughout this presentation. If you're planning your day, we're going from 12 to 1. We will be done by 1 o'clock today. So it's only going to go for an hour. Thanks so much, ladies. Thanks for being here with us.
Okay, well, my name is Jacqueline Carter. I am a student HireAbility Navigator with Workforce Solutions. And my job is to educate the public about pre-employment transition services offered by both Workforce Solutions and Vocational Rehabilitation Services under the Work Innovative Opportunity Act. And you may have heard of WIA before. Next slide. Workforce Solutions, the Gulf Coast Workforce Solutions Board has a lot of different services that are here to meet employer and the individual needs. So not only do we serve the students, but we serve the employers because they're the ones supplying the jobs, the apprenticeships, the internships, and the opportunities for our students with and without disabilities to advance in their employment career. Next slide. We are the largest workforce development area in Texas, which includes 88 ISDs, 100 charter schools, and 28 career centers around Houston and the Gulf Coast area throughout the 13 Gulf Coast region. Next slide. Which is just a map of some of the counties we serve, hopefully, and I'm pretty sure we are, serving Galveston, Chambers, Harris, Liberty, Montgomery, Walker, Waller, Austin, Colorado, Fort Bend, Wharton, Brazoria, and Matagorda. If you are not in any of these regions, you can just call us and we'll try to help you find a student HireAbility Navigator or a Workforce Solutions office with VR services near you. Next slide. So how can we help you? These are just a few of the services we offer: on-the-job training, paid work experience, apprenticeships. If you go into the office, you can access our computers and you'll register, and we'll have a bunch of employers with job listings. Employers call 24/7 with job openings, and this is a free way that the majority of employers can get their job postings out there. We hire people to go out and do job fairs and hiring events. We have access to internet, resume assistance, copier, fax, telephone, and computers. We offer job search advice, career exploration, labor market information, adult education. We connect with community resources if you or a child has a problem with, say, childcare and you need to go to work, or your student or child has no idea of what they want to do. We can help them with their exploration and planning for their future. And what a lot of people don't know is that Workforce Solutions can help with scholarship and financial aid. We're similar to vocational rehabilitation services. If the student or your child meets the qualifications, and it is the best way to help them get to school, Workforce Solutions can also assist with financial assistance in going to school. Next slide. So how do we help job seekers? Well, we help them by helping them with interviewing skills, application completion. Maybe they need adult education and literacy. As I said, applying for financial aid. We know that a lot of students may be the first ones in their family to go to school. And as a retired counselor, I can tell you, I had to help one of my students complete the FAFSA application, and it was a nightmare. I finally had to connect with the school and get someone who had more experience than I did. So if I had problems and I'm so quote in the system, then I know some of the parents might be struggling. So if you miss the opportunity to work with your school in helping your child or student prepare and complete the FAFSA application, you can go to Workforce Solutions and they'll help them. And so we know that a lot of, skipping ahead, students may not have an idea of what type of job they want. So we do have career exploration. We do have summer jobs and apprenticeships and helping them enter the workforce. We have a program called Hire Houston Youth. It might have, in the past, it was called the Mayor's uh, Hire Houston Youth Program. I don't know what it's going to be called now that we have a new mayor. But they link government institutions and businesses and community organizations and schools to offer internships and apprenticeships and job opportunities to students. And the difference between an apprenticeship and an internship is apprenticeships are paid, and their programs usually last about 8 weeks, and they may lead to employment. And if you've been to school, you know an internship is not paid, and they typically do not lead to employment. Next slide. So, what are pre-employment transition services? I'm not going to get too in depth with this because you're going to get this information with Ms. Shelton, who's a vocational rehabilitation counselor. And these are the 5 components that were under the WIA, Workforce Innovative Opportunity Act, which is career exploration, counseling on post-secondary opportunities, because as you know, sometimes our students don't know what they want to do, or they may have unrealistic job aspirations. So to get that realistic counseling and the hands-on experience is invaluable. Job readiness skills. When I have to do a presentation to the students, I'm always talking about how I did not have really great skills when I graduated from college. You know, in grad school, you have to call if you're sick or ill to let the professor know you're not there. My first job, I actually thought, well, I'm not going to call. I'm an adult. I don't have to tell people I'm sick. I didn't call. They called me to ask me where I was. So I'm giving you that explanation so that you know even students in college do not have, some of them do not have great job readiness skills. They have no idea what it takes to be a good employee. They don't understand what employers consider good employees. So those skills, once again, are invaluable. Self-advocacy. Now, VR has a great program for self-advocacy. They actually pay people, so I'm not going to touch on it, but a lot of our students, especially the ones with disabilities, they are used to relying on their parents and the school. So we found that it's really necessary to provide them with the skills to become independent, to develop problem solving. Now, we're not going to say that everyone's going to get these skills and go out and conquer the world, but at least we can start them on the way so that they're starting to think, well, I can solve this problem. What are my what are my cons and pros about this? They can start to learn how to make decisions. Work-based learning. Work-based learning is simply pre-employment transition. Work-based learning is simply either paid or unpaid work experience where they're getting that information. They're understanding what employers think are good work skills. They're understanding what good work behaviors are on the job and making good relationships that are appropriate at the workplace. So work-based learning, it could include internships, apprenticeships, paid, unpaid. And those are the 5 concepts of pre-employment transition services that are offered with both Workforce Solutions and Vocational Rehabilitation Services. The difference, the major difference, there are a lot of differences. Anyone with a disability can apply for services with Workforce Solutions. Workforce Solutions will not address the disability. Vocational rehabilitation services will address the disability. And if, say, because of social stigma, maybe the student doesn't want to say they suffer or they're diagnosed with depression or they're diagnosed with ADD or ADHD, and they want to go through the Workforce Solutions program, you can do both. They're just going to refer them to VR so that the disability symptoms and barriers to employment will be addressed.
Okay. Jacqueline, one thing that I think is super important to note is that these services can start as early as age 14. And I think a lot of people have that age 16 in mind because that's, typically the age that somebody could go to work. But a lot of these services and these trainings and And the job readiness occurs prior to age 16, and you can get them in as early as 14. So I think it's important to note that.
Okay.
And I love that you shared too that the two different organizations, because a lot of times there's a lot of confusion of what Workforce Solution does, as well as what Workforce Commission and the VR does. So I know you're going to go deeper with that.
Yeah. For pre-employment transition services with Workforce Solutions, it typically starts at 16 to 24. However, vocational rehabilitation services start at age 14 to 22 because well, I don't want to talk too much about it, but as you probably are aware, the earlier you can get an individual into vocational rehabilitation services, the greater success you may have because they're starting to think about their career future earlier. They're exploring jobs. They're learning what their aptitudes and their interests are. They're getting a more realistic view of what the labor market holds. So how does Workforce Solutions, how do we help prepare the next generation? Workplace tours, job shadowing or career mentorship. And I'm doing a job shadowing event now for Galena Park ISD. We're getting students together. I'm working hand in hand with VR services. VR is going to do the pre-eds, preparing them for employment. And then I found a sponsor that's going to take them to 3 different job sites. Well, we're getting large jobs so we can look at industries, because a job industry, maybe like a steel company, will have several different jobs there, anywhere from manager to a plant worker to a janitor. So they're looking at the whole industry and they're going to job shadow them to learn about the jobs. So career mentorships, pretty much the same thing. Service learning, they can learn by actually going on the job and volunteering. Work experience, we talked about paid work experience or an internship, unpaid work experience. All of those are also offered by Workforce Solutions, except they will not provide a job coach. So if you're doing work-based learning, which is the work experience, they will not have a job coach available. Although, as I said, they work with neurodiverse individuals, the majority of their applicants are neurotypical without a disability. But we do work hand in hand with vocational rehabilitation services. Next slide. Okay, so I actually have 7 minutes left. That was pretty quick. I'm here to answer any questions, or we can save them till after Catina finishes with the vocational rehabilitation presentation.
Oh, is Catina going to talk about the pre-employment training services as well as the summer earn and learn program? Because I know that like right now is like the time that if someone is interested in summer earn and learn, like the time is now to sign up for that. So if you guys have slides on that, otherwise I would love to talk about that so any families can get signed up for summer earn and learn.
Yeah, Catina is going to speak on summer earn and learn. I just want to make it clear. Vocational Rehabilitation Services offers summer earn and learn. You may have heard us refer to it as SEAL. Workforce Solutions has a summer youth employment program that they call Hire Houston Youth. And if you look up Hire Houston Youth, there's a whole website. The only reason I didn't put it in the chat is because we have a new mayor and it may change. Like before COVID, they offered a more varied program. Like you could get employment opportunities, apprenticeships or internships with government, different industries, but it kind of condensed into just, just a summer opportunity for the students, a paid summer opportunity. So I don't know how it's going to develop now, but we will have a summer youth employment program. And the reason that the age is 16 for work-based learning or paid work experience is because most employers will not hire the students until they are 16 years of age. I've only run into 2 companies that will hire younger, and they were based in Katy. I can't even remember. So, but the thing is, if you are able to find an employer because the parents work with their counselors, then the counselor can provide a job coach for them. It's a hand in hand endeavor. They work together. So it really depends. The relationship between the counselor and the student, and sometimes the parent, if they're underage, can be whatever they make of it. They're just going to find the best things they can do or the best plan that they can come up with to help your student or child develop the skills necessary to be successful in their future career or their post-secondary educational program. And I have 5 minutes.
So we have several great questions in the chat box. So let's go through a couple of questions before we move over to Catina. There was a change at the end of last summer, beginning 9/1/23, that job coaches are not available for students on job sites anymore. For example, summer earn and learn or other work-based learning. It is unrealistic for many students to be on a job without a coach. Why the change? Are basically our job coaches available now? Has that been reinstated? Any change to that?
Okay, now it is VR's job to make sure we try to find, I'm sorry, I'm a retired counselor, so I still talk in the first person sometimes. We do our best. When I was a counselor, and I'm sure Catina can validate this, we do the best we can to find job coaches. Job coaches are contracted by the state. So if Workforce Solutions, because Summer Earn and Learn is a program sponsored by Workforce Solutions, if they send the counselor a job placement for one of their students, the counselor will do the best they can to find a job coach. Now, maybe last year, the job coaches were not as plentiful, or they couldn't find, or they had already accepted other assignments. That is something the counselor does not have control over. The only thing we can do is let our management know, who will let Austin know that we need more job coaches available. So I'm sorry that that happened, if that did happen to you, but they're always adding more contracted vendors every day.
And we've had a lot of clients that still do have job coaches and stuff. And I think that your agency is no different than anywhere else in the country where they've struggled to hire and keep great employees. There's been a lot of retirement and stuff like that. So someone says, and this is the confusion, there's always confusion between TWC and Workforce Solutions. So she says, to be clear, TWC over VR and Workforce Solutions, or are these two different agencies with overlapping services? So can you give us just the quick version of Workforce Solutions and then Workforce Commission? And you guys work together, but there are different services. That's kind of how that works, right?
Right. Okay. So you have Texas Workforce Commission. They are up top. They are the commission. Under Texas Workforce Commission is Workforce Solutions. And they call it Workforce Solutions Vocational Rehabilitation Services. But in actuality, we say Workforce Solutions and Vocational Rehabilitation Services, so we can separate them, because I think there's a lot of confusion about who we serve. Workforce Solutions typically serve neurotypical individuals without a disability because they don't address the disability. That's not to say they don't serve them, but typically the majority of their population is neurotypical. Now, if we run across someone that applies for Workforce Solutions services and they have barriers to employment or symptoms of their disability that may preclude them from being successful, they are going to refer them to vocational rehabilitation services. When I was a counselor, I actually worked hand in hand. They were signed up for both of our services because this is telling stories. They signed up too late for Summer Earn and Learn, and there were no more slots available. So we had them go through Workforce Solutions, apply for services there. They got into the Hire Houston Youth Program, and I supplied the job coach. So that's why I say we can work hand in hand. And that's kind of, if you look at it like one agency addresses the disability and one agency will take individuals with disabilities, but they will not address it. They will not provide medical assistance or training or psychological assistance. And there are limits to that. So I don't want to just say we do that, but both can pay for it if it's required and warranted through the plan. Financial assistance with college, with internships. They can both help with things like that, but VR will address the disability. I have 16
So,
seconds. Okay.
so one person says, my son's already 20. Is it too late? And it's not too late. VR serves all ages. So, you know, we talked about 14 to 22, but there are adult services as well. So it's not too late. We had another person that said, is this service available in other counties? The answer is yes, and it's available all over the United States. VR is available in other states. So if you're listening in for another state and you're wanting to know about VR, your state has programs as well. And so the other thing I wanted to mention, I'm sure Catina's probably going to mention this, a lot of your schools have a VR counselor assigned to your school. So while you can self-submit, you can go online, you can start your VR right online and get the ball rolling. Your schools do have a VR counselor, so you can talk to the guidance department, talk to the transition program counselors there, and they'll know who your VR counselor is. But if it's the summertime or if it's spring break and you want to get started, you can still get started right online.
That is correct.
Let's see, what else? Let's see, is Summer Earn and Learn open for all workers up to age 22? When does Summer Earn and Learn stop, the age gap?
Okay, as I said, typically the student will have to be age 16, and that's just because the employers typically will not take anyone younger than 16. To go back to the previous person who asked the question, remember I said pre-employment transition services are under the Workforce Innovative Opportunity Act. That's just funding that's given for those 5 pre-employment transition services I mentioned. Now, we have adult programs. So even if the student is over the age of 22 and they're in the adult program, they can still access WIOA funds. So that's a funding that pays for those services. But vocational rehabilitation serves everyone. So I hope I made it clear.
That's
Pre-employment
good.
transition service has an age designation, but that doesn't mean services for anyone stops. It just means that they're accessing funds from WIA for those 5 services. But if they're over the age of 22, they'll still get adult services. It's just paid for out of a different funding. Does that answer that?
That's good. Is it true that you have to pay for job coaches? Someone said that they heard that they had to pay for their job coach.
I'm going to let Catina answer that question because that's a VR question. So, and my time is up. So she's better able to, well, I can answer it, but this is her section. So I don't want to step on anyone's toes.
I will be reminded to answer that question once after I present the information.
Okay, so we're going to let you take it away because I know you've got a lot of things. We still have some questions in the chat box, but we'll come back to them. So perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, great. Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Catina Shelton, and I am a TVRC, which is called a Transition Vocational Counselor with the Texas Workforce Commission. And we provide transition services to students with disabilities to help them make decisions as they transition from high school to employment. And as Jacqueline mentioned before, some of the areas that we help in, which are called pre-employment services, is career exploration, which means that we are able to do those assessments, do any type of pre-service works that we can do to help them identify who they are. And so actually, I'm just going to give just a quick bio about myself, and then we'll move on to the slides. Also, like we said, we do the work-based learning, counseling, and post-secondary opportunities, workplace readiness, and self-advocacy. So now the best time to start preparing for your adult life is to be responsible while we're in school. And so, as we said before, we work with students from age 14 to 22. And the purpose of our services is to help with disabilities to obtain and maintain employment. You can go to the next slide. They're consistent with the strengths and their abilities and aptitudes. VR services are eligibility based and are tailored to individuals. They are not intended to be emergency services. They are not time limited. As we've talked about before, that we also have not only just transition services, which is age 14 to 22, but then also there are adult services. So these services can be lifelong, lifetime. And they are arranged and provided by vocational rehabilitation counselors. Next slide. So the question is about the eligibility, and I always want to preface with all of our students and our parents that disability does not have to be a mental impairment. It can be a physical impairment. And so sometimes some of our students that are on 504 program that may have diabetes issues or epilepsy or some type of limitations in their limitations in their in transportation, physical limitations, they still will qualify in the criteria of eligibility of having a disability. The impairment constitutes a result that's subsequent impediment to employment. And so most people say, okay, what are impediments? And so I try to share with our students, it's just, are there obstacles? So when I go to the schools, I ask them, do they have obstacles in school? Are there anything in class that you are concerned about that you seem like may be difficult for you to understand? Again, the customers require vocational rehabilitation VR services are prepared for them to enter and engage in competitive employment, which means that we want them to be successful in the employment decisions that they make. Understanding that they will always have the ability to be able to increase in knowledge or as in their income. And we want customers that can achieve these employment outcomes, and they would not achieve these employment outcomes unless they had those services that are available to them through vocational services. Next slide. So transition services, so we've already talked about that it is age 14 to 22, and we also talked about that the 5 pre-ETS or pre-employment transition services is career exploration, work-based learning, counseling and post-secondary opportunities, job readiness, and self-advocacy. And so just a real quick, just an idea of what career exploration, I have had an opportunity to send students that are in high school to different colleges for the summer for a week program for them to get an idea of what college life is like. We've also did some career explorations with having what we call NASA camps, where students go to those camps and they learn about different types of employment opportunities that they could actually secure with the services that TWC will offer. Work-based learning, we do that with our vocational classes. Vocational classes, we talk about the way that money works. There are classes of soft skills and hard skills. Different classes that we offer to our kids virtually and as well as in person. And then counseling on post and secondary opportunities are those opportunities that we walk with a student through their college experience to make sure, one, that they know that they have the same supports or accommodations that they have been accustomed to in high schools, with making sure that they reach out to their accessibility department at their college. And then we also continue to make sure we keep in contact with those students, usually every 60 to 90 days, to make sure, one, that they're not having any other challenges that TWC can address. Also, we try to make sure that they are comfortable. Are they physically and mentally comfortable in the decision that they made? And then also, again, just to support them and encourage them that if they need any assistant technology, whether that be computers or hearing devices, visual aid devices to help them feel more comfortable and successful in school. That's what we do. And of course, job readiness, and which we have an opportunity to do that through SEAL, and I can talk about that a little later, and self-advocacy. We want our students to know how to advocate for themselves when it comes to their disability. What are things they should feel comfortable in requesting and asking, and then giving them an opportunity to exemplify that or to work those things out during our vocational classes. The next slide. Okay, vocational rehabilitation counselor. So I am what is called transition vocational rehabilitation counselor, which is TVRC. The other counselors, what we say that work with the adult caseloads, they are vocational rehabilitation counselors. So they are the counselors that work with general caseloads, and they could work with a high school, or they could be a high school liaison. We do have some students that may, their disability may be visually impaired. And so they may end up working with a vocation rehabilitation counselor. And that's only because they have more access and resources to the needs that that student may have because of that impediment. Next slide. So we already talked about what the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act is, and that is just so that people will know that there has been money set aside to serve our students. And we want to be able to access that money. A lot of time what we have noticed is that some of our parents are not reaching out to us about whatever it is that they need. And because of that, we're not getting a chance to spend all of this money that is set aside for our students. And it makes me think of Jerry Maguire, show me the money. We're here. We want to show you where the money is, and we want to be able to aid your student to be as successful as possible. Next slide. So potentially eligible students are those students that are between the age of 14 to 22. They are in an educational program, which means they're in a public, private, or homeschool. They also are, again, like I said, have a disability, must be defined as a student, and attending the vocational process is when we realize that their services are needed. So again, some of those services that we offer, that's prior to that student becoming a customer, which again, potentially eligible, is that we haven't actually gone through all of the eligible eligible criterias, but yet they are a student and we have services that can help them. We will give them or send them weekly or monthly, or at least for my students, I'll send out monthly emails to the parents to let them know of services and programs we have available for them that may be free of charge. The only time that we have to continue that process to move a potentially eligible customer, eligible student to make them a customer, is that when we have to then start paying for different services. So those are the difference between potentially eligible and customer. So any student with a disability age 14 to 22 will already be considered potentially eligible customer and could potentially receive services from TWC. Next slide. So how do we get started? As you can see on this slide, that there is a website that you can go to, and once you fill in the information, they will send you to your closest office. You also can visit the VR Vocational Services by emailing the email address or calling the number that's listed on the slide below. We serve in different regions, and we want to make sure that we get you to the closest office possible. But let me also be mindful to say that our services are open door policy. So whatever wherever office that you feel comfortable or you want to work with is your choice. We want to serve you where you are. And also, most of our service that we do are virtual, so you don't always have to come into the office if there's a concern about transportation or just the timeliness in being able to meet with a counselor. Next slide.
We had a question about contacting, like, so for instance, if your school doesn't know who your VR counselor is this phone number a good number to reach out to? This 512-936-6400 for Texas. Is this a good number to reach out to identify who is your counselor in that area?
Yes, that is our Austin number. So you would be directly sent to the Austin office, and they can put you in your right office so that you can receive services.
Perfect. Thank you.
And then on the next slide, it just says, here's our regions. I am in Region 5, which I am in the Houston region. And at this time, I personally serve, I serve Deer Park, Pasadena, and Friendswood. However, there are offices that are in the area of Pearland and Texas City that serve some of the other students that are more South Houston or outside of the Houston region. But if there's ever concern, you're always able to email either one of these people that are serving these regions, and they can also assist you to make sure you're in the right office. The next slide. Okay, and again, those are our state office and transition teams as well. So if you need any information, that is the contact information for them. And then the next slide is just that the final slide that that you would have saw in Ms. Jacqueline's presentation, and that is our contact information. So if you need any contact information to either get in contact with the Texas Workforce Commission or Texas Workforce Solution, here's our contact information. Now, I've gotten through our slides, but there were a couple of things that I wanted to make sure that I covered based off of some of the questions I did see in the chat. As a mother of a student who has a disability, I wish I would have known this. I had no clue that this was available to my student. And so what I did not know is that the school doesn't do everything. They are not going to do everything for you. They do some miraculous and wonderful things, but there are some other things that are some other experiences and exposures that I would like the children to be able to see before they have to make that decision. I understand that my information is dated. I mean, I don't do math the way that, or my kids don't do math the way that I did, that I was taught math. And we've had some really battles about the right way to do math. So I recognize that some of my information is dated and I needed the help and the resources. Also, I needed help. I needed help in informing. I have a student, one is graduated college, one is in college, and one is a senior. And I have recognized that in each area of services for my children, I needed help. And it would have been great if I would have known that TWC and TWS was available, because they could have facilitated answering some of those questions. There was a question about work-based learning and the job coaches. And so we call job coaches now work experience trainers. So if you ever hear that word, we still operate under both of those titles, but they are called work experience trainers. And what happened with SEAL this year, let me just go, first of all, explain SEAL. SEAL is an opportunity, which is called Summer Earn and Learn, which is our opportunity to connect with our schools, and our schools connect with the students who really want to have an opportunity to experience what it's like to work. And so we work with our teachers to identify those students. And at that time, during the identifying those students who are willing and able to work, and then they meet the criteria, then we try to make sure that those students, we can identify those students who need work experience trainer. So one of the issues that happened last year is that we had a list of students that fill out the application, they were eligible, but somewhere in the midst of the conversation, we didn't talk about if they needed or required a job coach. And as Jacqueline said before, once we identified that need, the pool of work experience trainers was depleted. And so we were not able to, at that time, to secure those jobs. So it's not that it's a funding issue, it was just personnel issue. We just didn't have enough work experience trainer. However, this year we are definitely making sure that as these students are being identified, that we are actually asking our schools and our teachers and our parents to identify, do you believe this student needs a work experience trainer? And then what the TVRC counselor should be doing, which I know I will be doing, is that it is my job between now and before SEAL starts, is to meet with those students individually so that we can make sure that this is exactly what this student needs. And then we can also pair the right match, because there are work experience trainers that are good in some areas, and they are, maybe not as knowledgeable in other areas. So I believe it's the TVRC's responsibility to handle our students with care and make sure that we give them exactly what they need. And it is, you know, almost like they say the early bird gets the worm. There's only so many students that the state can actually host for summer earn and learn. So it is imperative that you do talk to your school's counselor or your school's transition specialist, so that we can make sure that student gets all of the application, all of the documents are turned in, and we make sure that we identify if they are in need of a work experience trainer. And also, again, with post-secondary, not all students are going to want to go to college. And so with post-secondary counseling, we also offer services to help students navigate whether their employment desire is through earning a trade. We have different vendors and different companies that work with our students to help them identify if a trade is what their best route would be. So all of this to say, our responsibility as TVRC is hopefully to start with them at 14, to give them enough guidance so that they can make a decision on what they want to do after high school. And then we continue to support them until they are ready to either no longer need our services, or until they transfer over into adult services. So we're here to serve. We're here to serve our students. Thank you.
Catina, someone was asking, are the services free? And as we mentioned earlier, there are state and federally funded programs. They have deep pockets and they need to get rid of that money. They need to spend the money on the programs for your students. And, you know, there is, it doesn't, everybody has like their plan basically. And so what your neighbor gets might not be what your kid gets, because these plans are specifically tailored to your child. So the neighbor kid might be getting college for free, and your kid might be having additional training services or whatever. You know, it could be any number of things. I've seen where part of getting to work would be transportation. So I've seen them pay for disability driving school. And that doesn't mean that they're going to pay for that for everybody. But the bottom line is it's not. They have deep pockets, and this is a big program, and it's a great program. But one thing that I want to address, Catina, and because I think we work in this community all day, every day, and so there are families out there that have tried this, and maybe they've had a bad experience. Maybe they had many counselors or changes, or they struggled to get in contact with their counselor or get things moving, or their kids have been in the program for several years and they're not getting the traction that they're getting. But what I want to say about that is, like I said earlier, this organization is not different than anybody else's that has struggled as far as hiring and having enough people and all of that kind of thing. But don't give up. There is help for you. There are managers. There are people that can help get your case reassigned to a new counselor if that's what needs to happen. So I just want to say, don't throw in the towel. If that's you, if you're out here and you've kind of been on this journey and you're feeling frustrated or whatever, don't give up. There's definitely help for you. And you can get the train moving again. So talk to them a little bit about that. If they are stuck and they need some help, what is their recourse? Who do they reach out to if they need some additional help?
So thank you, Allison. Well, when you are at a standstill and you think that you're not receiving the services, to always voice your concerns to your counselor, because a lot of times, sometimes the counselor is not aware, because we do serve such a large population of children. We may not be aware that we are not serving your customer, your student, the best to the best that we can. So definitely reach out, give the counselor an opportunity to address any concerns. And then after that, you are more than welcome, because again, it is an open door policy, to ask to speak to that person's manager. And it's not that you're trying to, get someone in trouble, but again, we are here to serve our customers, and it is customers' choice. And we want to make sure that we're giving our customers the best services possible. Then if that is not available, if that didn't work for you, you're always more than welcome to call the Austin office. Let them know your concerns. And even if you choose, hey, I just want to go a different route with someone new, is that possible? Yes. You do not have to stick with the same counselor throughout the whole process if that is not what works for your family. So again, there's a lot of us, it's more of you, but we want to be able to serve you correctly, and we want to serve you with having a positive outcome. So, and then let me also add about the finances. So one thing, as Allison said, we never know if there is a cost to the services that are going to be provided, but I think we owe our children the opportunity to find out if there is. And 9 times out of 10, usually there is no cost. What we call comparable benefits is that we take in consideration the family structure, the family's outgoing expenses. We try to calculate as much as we can to make sure that our services are in reach. So again, if you think by any chance that you may make more than your neighbor and this service would not be available to your child, please give us an opportunity to show you that we can still work with your student.
And I can comment on that too. I just want to mention that, like, you know, for some households that have high income households, there may be like a cost share to the family, but that cost share is small, so it's not like it's crazy. You may have a piece that you would pay, but if you went and paid for all of this on your own, it would be exponentially more. So that's my experience with that. One thing I wanted to mention, we'll come to you, Jacqueline, is that a lot of families, you know, we do a lot of education on, you know, government benefits, SSI and Medicaid. And then, you know, there's a lot of fears that come in for some of these families that if their kid goes to work, that they're going to lose their SSI, they're going to lose their Medicaid. And I just wanted to mention, because a lot of people don't know this, these organizations have subject matter experts on benefit counseling. So if your kid's getting SSI and Medicaid, you are afraid of losing those benefits, they have experts that will work specifically with you on your kid, their job, their benefits, and tell you exactly what and how, what to do, what not to do, and what actions will have effects. So just you don't have to think about that on your own. You just have to ask your counselor, tell your counselor that you have concerns about that, and they will get the appropriate people on the team to talk to you. And I've talked to them. They're really smart. They're really, really good at what they do. So don't be afraid to ask for that. Jacqueline?
Yeah, I wanted to let you know, if you're having problems signing up for VR services, I just put the VRS Rapid Response phone number in the chat, which is 512-936-6400. Also, I wanted to let you know, no matter what your basic living expenses are, we call them BLR when you're calculating if you will have to pay a portion or what type of expense you'll have to share in the cost of services. Job placement services, there is no cost. Even if you are the president of the United States and you're a billionaire, you know, there is no cost for the job placement services. That is not calculated in the cost of expenses. And to close, there is another VR program, and I just wanted to bring it up for a few seconds. It's called Paving the Pathway to Success. And the reason why I'm mentioning it is because the deadline date is January 31st. It is a program for individuals with disabilities age 16 to 22. It is, the program goes from March to May of 2024. And it's a business project mentorship and training symposium. So it is a 7-week program. So if you have a child who's interested, they will have to be in vocational rehabilitation services. It gives them the opportunity to apply learned skills and training toward a 4 to 6 week team project. And at the end of that project, they're participating in paid work experience. And that's where the 7 weeks come in. So the participants and their parents are required to attend a 2-day symposium at the end of the mentorship to showcase the team's business project. So that
Someone
is.
said, can you say the name of that one more time? Paving, say it one more time, please.
Paving the Pathway to Success. It's a pre-employment training program for ages 16 to 22 of individuals with disabilities. The deadline date to apply is January 31st. So that's another reason I wanted to put the rapid response phone number in. If you want your child to participate in this program, and it's going to be a lot of weekends, so they really have to be committed. And I will say, as a counselor, it was hard getting students interested in going through a pre-employment training program that took place on a lot of the time over the weekend, but every last participant loved it. They wanted to apply again and again, which they couldn't, but it's once they're in and they're committed, they will love this program.
Can you put in the chat box a link to where they can apply for this program? And then someone asked, for the 7-week program, are there job coaches available?
They will have, the counselor will work with them. The counselor, they have to be signed up for vocational rehabilitation services. They have to be in the system, whether it's on the main caseload or they're, I forgot what it's called already, or they're just signed up for basic services, for the pre-ed services. So they have to go through the registration process for VR and let the counselor know they're interested in the paving the pathway to success. The rapid number is there because the deadline date to sign up is the 31st of this month. I can send, and I think Jan already has my flyer for paving the pathway, but I'll send that to her along with a map of all the office locations that we serve in Houston and its surrounding areas so that they can sign up for both workforce solutions and vocational rehabilitation services. So I'll
One thing that I want to mention, because I went through this as a parent with my own kids with disabilities and signing up for VR, and there is a lot of documentation that is necessary. So as we're going into the weekend, a few pieces of advice that I could offer is create a folder on your desktop and start sliding the documents in. They need proof of diagnosis, an ID, they need, medical records, expenses, if they're in school, if they're in other programs, your financial information. It's kind of a long list of things that they're going to need, and it feels a little bit overwhelming when you're putting it together. Some people have it all on their computer. Some people are fishing through file cabinets and under the bed and wherever else to get this stuff together. But pulling that stuff together and creating a folder on your desktop, it will make it easy for you to upload this necessary documents. You guys can chime in on the other stuff, but I mean, it's basic identity of the person, finances of the person, what programs are they in, how much do they cost, proof of diagnosis. You have to prove that they have a disability. So if you have neuropsych testing, if you have an IEP, document from the school, those are all helpful pieces. Please add anything else, but I just know if you wait to the last minute to gather that stuff, you're going to feel overwhelmed. It's not that bad. It's a process, but I would say get started on it, especially if you're trying to get into that program before the 31st. What else did I miss on the stuff that you guys gather?
Okay, so VR has there's a VR program, but then if you're not sure if you want to be in the regular program on a regular caseload, and you're just interested in the pre-ed services, the 5 services that we talked about, then there is a very quick way to get in. All you need is a student ID or a driver's license. You need a document, as mentioned earlier, that your child has a disability, either our document or IEP. If you don't have that, then just have your SPED director or SPED teacher write a letter on student letterhead, on school letterhead, saying that they're in SPED or 504, and then we can use that information. And then I think they just have to sign 2 sheets of paper, 2 forms by VR, and have, Social Security card, especially if they want to participate in paid work experience. So picture ID or student ID or driver's license, any form of government ID, Social Security card, because they have to be a registered, it is work in Texas and we're the state, and a document that shows that they have a disability, or a letter from the school that says they're receiving 504 services or they're in the SPED department. And I think there's 2 forms because usually they're underage that the parents have to sign to allow their kid to participate. That is the quick way to get them into the pre-employment transition services like Summer Earn and Learn, paid work experience, or paving the pathway to success. So just let you know that.
Also, if you submit yourself online, Start My VR, and you're starting your VR for your child, use the phone numbers that have been provided today to follow up once you've submitted that request. the squeaky wheel gets the grease. So if you call and follow up, I've recently applied for VR and I want to get this process moving like yesterday. Use the phone numbers that have been provided so that way you can, keep the ball rolling and it's not 2, 3, 4 weeks before you hear from somebody. So don't just submit it and then follow up with a phone call. Guys, this has been a great webinar today and lots of great information to get our kids to work. We always talk about the things to keep on your radar when we're planning for special needs and transition time. When we have kids transitioning into adulthood, there's a lot of considerations: guardianship, to have guardianship or not to have guardianship, special needs trust, SSI, and Medicaid. There's so many different things. We have webinars on every single one of these topics. They all live on the Consolidated Planning Group YouTube channel. Today, you're going to get a copy of the slides, all the numbers that were provided, all the links. There's a link here for all of our upcoming webinars that we have, and you can kind of search the titles for the journey that you're on that might be of interest to you. We work on a collaborative team here at Consolidated Planning Group. I always like to share some faces with the names. Again, we're nationally certified as Social Security advisors and members of the Special Needs Planning Academy. We stand ready to help you plan for your loved one with a disability, and we always offer free personalized consultations. This QR code that you see on the screen will take you to our calendar. So if you want to schedule a free personalized consultation, you have additional questions that maybe you don't want to put in the chat box today or maybe unrelated to this, just schedule with us and we'll be happy to chat with you and take that further with you. Thank you both, Catina and Jacqueline, for being here with us today. You guys were awesome, lots of information. And we're so glad that you shared that with us. And Jan, thank you. All of the ISDs that are here today, thank you for taking the time to be with us. Again, everybody's going to get a copy of these slides. If you're listening by podcast, you can email us at contact@cpgcares.net or call us at 281-690-1177, and we will be happy to share these slides with you. Thanks so much, everyone. I hope everybody has a great weekend. Take care.
Goodbye.